slab, you see this little cut here? A little split in the slab edge? Martha talked about, I learned a lot from her, talked about just removing the edge. So any fault lines, you're getting rid of. Be patient with me because I'm not Martha Grover. And so she starts out doing that. When she makes her slab, she sprays this lightly and then takes a soft rubber rib, so you can picture me spraying lightly, and then compresses the slab in both directions with the soft rubber rib. And she talks about, don't dig in, you know, you don't want the edge, so you come at it softly and then start to press. And this slab has air bubbles and some problems. We're not going to worry about that for the purposes of the demo. So she would do that in both directions, la 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 la. She would flip it and do it again, la 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 la. So I have a big old air bubble there. And then she also talked about, you know, it's hard to get the clay at exactly the right consistency for this, and it's important. Could somebody reach back there? There's a box of foam cubes on the top there.
Yeah. You want the whole box?
Sure, why not? Because I don't know what I really need. So then she would wake this up. If it was a little too dry, which this is very uneven. It's wet on this side and hard here. So what she would do, and porcelain, she talked about porcelain being thixotropic, which means it's kind of like a liquid.
Oh.
And when you stir a liquid, it thins. You know how when you stir yogurt, it thins, right?
Yes.
So if you start stretching it and moving it, it softens. So I can wake the slab up. Maybe I can even it in terms of its moisture or the way it feels. This is softer already. So just please ignore all the air bubbles. This is just, you know, I came up here Saturday morning and made some slabs before I went to Philadelphia to see Ryan Greenheck, which was really fun. And I didn't make it to NCCA this year, so I spent money on pots in Philadelphia. So that, this is not in great shape, but it's only a demo. And then, let's get rid of this. You can pass that bisque piece around. That's kind of like what I'm making, but not exactly. So, she threw a wall with no bottom. She makes it into her shape, right? Don't treat your slab like that. And then she would cut away this thickness. I'm not going to, maybe I will. I'm afraid to take it away because I'm thinking the clay underneath will be softer than this and I won't be able to do what I need to do. But anyway, she would cut away this thick edge, and then she would figure out where her feet are. So say I'm making a basket form and this is my 4 feet. She would do like an S, and she would know, she could just go,
you can see it on
and it comes out right? So she would cut that away. She would probably cut this away and leave about a ½ inch for the foot. This is just going to give you a quick, generalized, very generalized idea of what she does. Because I'm not, and she doesn't measure, she just cuts. And this should be stiffer, this piece. So, make believe that these distances are equal. And really, you know, someone was saying something about, earlier when we were talking about the library, we were talking about the DVDs and, you know, watching. We should just put her video on and get so much more out of it. But it's good to see it in person, I think. So she would then take her slab, which would be thinner than this one, and kind of drape it over this and use the soft rubber rib to get an impression of where everything is with pressing with this. And she probably would have taken off a lot more. She would have measured. So this, you wouldn't have all this flopping stuff in your way. So we'll do that now.
Are they in Maine now?
Yes. They have an awesome building. So I'm just compressing it, and I'm trying to make an impression in the slab of where to slip and score.
So you're gonna take that off?
Yes. So then you would take it off. You would flip it this way, not so roughly. Then you would, let me see if I can make it so you can see the slab. Oh, and by the way, I made the apron and it was, see the crisscross in the back? Martha has a crisscross apron that someone made her. Let me sneeze. So, Rose, I really don't like that knot on my back, and I really loved her apron, but I needed more coverage, so I found this pattern. It's a JapaneseSewing.com, Japanese Sewing, if you Google it, and there's a wonderful pattern for aprons, and I made all my grandchildren.
Japanese sewing?
JapaneseSewing.com, I think.
It's really cute.
So she made a big point about slipping and then scoring. Anybody remember why?
Yeah, because she thinks that you want the wet slip to be there before scoring, so it goes into scoring impressions.
And everything she did was quick. See how she rolled? See how Martha? See how she rolled? I would be going, right?
Let me see the consistency of the glove.
And it's a paper clay.
This is
right?
pretty
Yeah,
thin.
yeah.
Oh, right. Let's talk about the slip. The slip recipe is right here. This is actually Bruce's recipe, which is a little different than Martha's. Bruce Denner. So this is dry clay, bone dry clay. Add vinegar, and then a pinch of nylon fiber, which you can get at Ceramic Supply, but I can give you some because I probably have enough to last 3 lifetimes. And you just use a teeny pinch, and like a half of a drop, really so little sodium silicate, and 2 squares of toilet paper to a quart, so I used more for this.
Her variation is
She doesn't put the
toilet paper and vinegar with the immersion blender
Right.
to create a slushy, and then just to keep on adding the dry clay of your clay body powdered in powder form, like to it till it's thick, like very heavy yogurt, like Greek yogurt.
And I
And
don't
she
think she
would-
put in any
she-
sodium silicate, did
No.
she?
She scored carefully. I have been, less careful than she was. She scored everything in 2 directions. Remember that?
Yes,
Yes, and I was impressed.
I was too. I'm a slob.
Yeah, she.
Is there
Oh,
a reason
and-
for that?
I was born that way?
Well, that's the way we were taught when we were 3, and then we got lazy. I was always taught to score in 2 directions, and I mean, that's the way it was presented to me originally, and then, you think you can get away with shit, and you can't. Expletive. How do you say it?
Expletive needed.
Okay, that's done. This is all slipped and scored, right? Because you don't want to stand here and watch me
No,
slip and score,
you
right?
did a good job.
Talk about being lazy, right? And so this goes back on here, and you marked it somehow. You made like a little key, like maybe you made 2 cuts, make 2 little marks and 2 little marks, so you would know which way to put it back on. And then you go back in with this, And she would keep cleaning this off with a sponge. But it's fun to watch the form take shape. So she would get all this nicely added and goosh, so there would be slip gooshing out of both sides, from the outside and inside. And then you can trim this a little closer. So I have the knife and my finger.
Yeah, that's the hard part, right?
Yeah, this is hard
Yeah.
for me. And this is where it really makes a difference how thick your slab is. And I've always done this, I'm cutting into it. I've always done this with too thick a slab when I've tried to do her. When I've made her pots, my pots are much too heavy. And one is because I forgot, actually this time I deliberately didn't cut off that bottom part because it's a demo and I wanted it not to collapse on me so you can actually see it take form. But I would forget. So she's actually going to remove from here down. And so her wall's very thin. And then she puts this nice thin slab on, which, you know, it's great that she can do it.
You have to leave a little extra, right? For the-
Yeah, I'm leaving a little extra. I'm not cutting too close. Then, okay, this is the weird part. So wherever there's a foot, you're going to have a point sticking out. And where there's not a foot, you're going to have an S-curve, right? So point. And this is going to be so sloppy. I wish I could do a neater
But you know,
job.
I don't remember. Maybe she did. Does she mark that? That's
No, she
that's
wouldn't have
good
done
for
what I
me.
just
Yeah,
did.
but I like
But
that.
look at her. Okay,
Yes.
let's talk about that. Can you
Yes.
hand that to me?
Yeah.
Okay, now this piece, you have to realize there's a dart taken here, which I did not do, so I would have cut my wall, taken a dart and pushed that in, but then you close that up with slip and score it, and then you have to wait. You can't put your slab on yet. And I think there's a dart this way too, although I don't mean, that's probably after it's turned over.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
there is a dart.
Okay, so there's a dart here. But look at her peaks. Wherever there's a foot, there's a peak. And imagine this was flat. Wherever there's not a dart, there's an S-curve. That's what I'm trying to say. So you should, there's a lot of her pieces on that shelf over there, and if you're careful, you can pick them up and look at the bottoms on the top shelf. And they're all the same. You don't realize it when you're looking at her work. Her approach is simple and easy for her because she does it over and over and over.
Those little triangles are very useful for me who had a trouble remembering where the foot was.
So this is a simpler form to look at. Wasn't that smart? I looked at it before I turned it upside down. So there's 3 feet, and wherever there's a foot there's a point, and where there's not a foot, she's going. Okay. So. So I actually, and she comes fairly close in. So I'm going to go like this. It works better if you make that noise.
She doesn't make that sound.
I have, this is remedial work. I'm not Martha Grover, believe me. So let's make believe that's beautiful. And then she would cut this out. And this is the hard part. I'm not looking to see if I'm cutting into my base. If you know, then you're really screwed. And this is probably like twice as thick as it should be. Are you getting the idea, though, of her approach?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's good. That's all I care about. Yeah, this is maybe too close in, but I want to get the shape going.
Is there anyone making bottoms like this? Anyone besides Martha?
No, not that I know of. And if they did, come on, you know? Right? I mean, could you see going into a gallery and seeing this shape on a bottom and someone else's name on it? I
Right.
mean,
Couldn't imagine it.
who would
So
try to get away
how
with
would
that?
someone feel like doing it with her own work because of that? I
If you're
think.
giving it to your daughter,
Mhm.
it's fine.
But if you're showing it, you'd
You're
feel
not
awfully
selling
foolish.
this.
No.
You'd be a
Yes.
fool.
Yes, I agree.
But you could do
It's
it
only
if
my
you-
opinion, but you'd be an asshole.
I totally
Then
agree.
why bother
Totally
to
agree,
buy
yeah.
her video and learn her technique if you're not going
It's
to?
fun.
Because
Why do you
Okay.
make pots?
They're fun.
To sell? Do you really support yourself
No,
selling your
no,
pots?
no,
Oh, come
no.
on.
I supplemented.
Yeah. I mean, and if you do support yourself selling your pots, go in your studio and make your own pots. This is just fun.
So
And okay, so let me. I'm
Okay,
being
go ahead.
obnoxious. So from this, there's another thing she does, where she makes a gusseted oval form,
Yes.
and I made a gusseted square form. I still wouldn't sell that, but it's nice for a matzah dish for Passover, which
Oh, yeah.
of course I'm a little late. It didn't get glazed soon enough, but you know,
You wouldn't sell it because you think that screams Martha Grover?
Yeah, I don't.
yes.
I
That
don't.
doesn't scream
No,
Martha
not
No,
today.
it's
No,
a-
That
it's-
screams Martha.
Yes.
You know.
But still, in all, unless I developed it further, you know,
Right,
there's things I've done that I'm proud of that are mine.
right.
So why would I
No, I understand.
go there?
Can I add something too?
Sure.
I think just the way she approached developing the method is really important to think about. It's all on orchid flowers. That was her number one inspiration with orchids. And she really thought about how to approach it. And she developed a methodology of cylinders without a base and then carving them to simulate it and work a lot of altering. And she just carries it through to whatever she's making. Someone picked up a beautiful mirror that she made the frame that way, and it was just all done with the same technique.
And if you look at her perfume bottles in
Oh,
particular,
yeah.
they're
God,
very,
yes.
very sexy orchids.
Right, so this is like a baseline, like this is how I will proceed.
Right, so that's interesting how an artist approaches their work and develops it and comes up with this
Right.
kind of stuff.
Right.
Linda
That was an
Arbuckle
important technique.
has a great, Linda Arbuckle has a great thing. She shares a lot on the. I'm going to thin this. This is too thick. So I'm going to bevel this all along here. Linda Arbuckle talks about a professor she had who was a snazzy dresser, and she would take a pot and dress it up. You know, I mean, everybody has their thing that inspires them.
That's the beauty of learning other people's techniques. You incorporate it into where you're going.
Right, exactly.
And it comes
Can
out
you do me a
different.
favor? There's a basket there over there with a handle. That's a Martha Grover basket. The big, it's third shelf, yes.
Oh my goodness.
Pass that around. That weighs a ton, and that's me doing Martha Grover. It is ridiculous, but it's fun. I mean, I had so much fun making that.
I love that glaze
Yeah, your
too.
glaze
That
is
glaze is just
beautiful.
Well,
unreal.
that's a celadon that Bruce gave me. So, I don't know.
Does it have a crackle, or do you add a crackle too?
I put a yellow glaze on top of it, and it broke it up.
Well, I was
that's
looking at some of the
beautiful.
others over there, and a lot of them are crackle. I was wondering if-
Oh, yeah. That's, the glaze started
beautiful
crazing like
celadon.
crazy. Yeah, so this weighs a ton, but if she made it, it would be like the one that's over there. Well, no, I have, no, I don't have one of those, but that's another thing she does. Okay, so I'm just gonna push this down. It's not gonna be anything like what she would
Okay,
do,
yeah,
because you don't want to be here till 8 o'clock, right? Because that's the thing. Me doing Martha Grover,
Yeah, if you
it would
do
be.
Does she do them fast? Okay?
She's very
Yes.
fast. She's very fast, but they're beautiful. Not very fast and sloppy. Okay. All right. So let's make believe that looks like that, right? And then she waits.
Whoa.
Yeah. This is, you know, she waits until this is stiff enough. You can't really. And this is like, and then she does something like this here. This is all cut down, but you see this little,
Oh, yes.
Right.
see that?
Mhm.
Okay.
And then she would, help me, Ellen. because she would trim this, would she trim this all off, or would she wet it and?
If she had a handle like that, then she would, if she
Oh,
had a
if handle,
handle,
then she leaves it.
right, but then she would,
So for the one with the
Take a divot
handle,
out that
she
way.
wouldn't do anything.
No,
to
she
it.
didn't take a divot, she just somehow pulled this out and pulled
Well,
this
this
out
one,
even
if you look at
farther.
it, there's a dart taken out of the top right here.
Yeah,
and then she pinched these edges.
Yeah, the edges are
Yeah, this is too-
beautiful and
yeah.
smooth, and she spends a lot of time,
Soft leather hard is when she
relatively
did.
a lot of time, but she does it so quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I'm sorry that,
No,
sorry I'm not Martha Grover,
Practice,
but I
practice,
make a good
practice,
apron.
and you can be a Martha Grover too.
Right, so she took a dart here, and then she spent a lot of time. Let me just see if I can pull out a couple of curves of this rib. Because it has to be stiff enough to flip, which it wasn't, but it has to be then soft enough to get these
Right,
curvilinear lines in the rim. So that's another thing about the clay being thixotropic, is she massaged
Yeah.
water
She
into
really
it for a
did.
really long time.
Yeah, she
So
would prep it before she did.
and when I say long time, she's working very quickly, but she spends so much attention, right?
did you spray the yellow on top? Or
No.
How did you get that?
That glaze just broke up
Just
over
breaks.
and I was trying to mimic what she does with glaze. I'll talk about that later, because her glazing is a whole different thing.
Yeah.
So there should be a little point at each foot, but it should be way down further. So look at that one to get the idea of what I was trying to do here, because I really didn't do it. And so she would do this, like squeezing. And if you throw a lot, you'll know that feeling of working that out. See what's happening?
yeah.
Was it
So
Stephen
first,
Hill?
it's a very light touch, and I'm gradually adding more pressure and then squeezing a little bit more. So a lot of her curvilinear stuff is happening because there was a dart here, so it really brings out that curve. And this little thing is very sweet, and she's, has probably half of, much less clay. So you can see this starting to happen. And then she might,
Yeah.
Like a
right?
picture spot.
Picture spout, right?
And think of orchids while you're doing this.
She talked about growing up on a farm and they grew a lot of flowers. And her family home is filled with antiques and flowers. Huge, huge, huge garden, right? She talked about that. Then here she has like 3 pullouts. So
I
She
forgot.
also talked about this manipulation of the rim, strengthens it and offers more integrity, so it retains a lot more of its shape.
in the firing.
Yeah,
Oh,
which I thought was interesting.
Say that again.
Like the rim manipulation she does strengthens the integrity of the form so that there's not too
Yeah.
much with the
Warping?
warping. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe that was a
So
word I
you
was-
guys get an idea of where this would be going if this wasn't spinning? Okay. And then she also, what else can I tell you? This was really important. When this is stiff enough to flip over, what happened to the box of foam?
Right here.
Yeah, I never did this before. I didn't, when I added my slab, I forgot this part. She puts, so, let me do it in this one. Before she would flip this, she would build up a support system in here, right to the level of the pot. and then flip it and put her slab on. Duh, I didn't do it on this one.
Makes sense.
So that was really, that was a cool thing to learn. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I
She
wanted
puts
to-
coils inside.
Between bats?
Yes. But this is a tricky thing to do because of it having to be stiff enough to flip and soft enough to play with. So I think she goes back and forth between
She really.
waiting for it to dry and then adding water to it.
Because ours are all cracking.
Oh, yeah.
Timing is key, right?
And so for the gusseting one, she would add a bottom. And let me see if I can do something really quick with this thing. So we're gonna make believe that there's already a slab on the bottom of this. This is really hard, I can't do it. But I'm gonna do it anyway, it's gonna crack, but you're gonna see. Okay? She makes a beautiful oval tray, which is probably why I wanted to make a tray. No, I don't know what that is. I had a square chocolate cake that I had no dish for. That's why I started making those. For that one came out too. So she, right, and then she takes a cut in it, something like this, and she would. That's really. You might use your one cutout to have a template for your other cutout. And then this is softer and it has a bottom, right? Gonna see what happens. It's gonna crack right here. So she would probably compress this area a lot. And she splays this out. And if it had a bottom, it wouldn't be moving on me the way it is, right? So she just coaxes it out, and she doesn't do what I'm doing. Don't do what I'm doing if you're gonna try this. Okay?
Should it have a bottom?
Yes, it would have a bottom. You know, I probably should have.
So is this gonna be the
This is
foot?
gonna be that only oval.
Oh,
See this? Look at this.
this
So
is
she's
the-
just splaying it out, which is what I did with that one.
I thought you were.
But
gonna
you put
fold
the
it.
bottom on first. And in this case, she did do the little, I didn't make a fancy bottom on
She
mine.
made a profile on the bottom, you know, like those pieces, but she didn't do any cuts.
She didn't do any cuts.
Because you need the stability for all
Right.
this splaying you're doing.
So she splayed this out until it really went
It
quite
laid down
flat.
pretty
It
flat,
really came out all the way to there, you know.
Just slow and
And
steady.
then she took, I don't remember how she got her shape for her gussets, but I'll tell you what I did. I took a piece of paper and held it up, so this opening is now like that, right? And this is all beautiful and not cracked. And splayed out like an oval tray. And I have that tray. There's one up there I'll show to you. And then what I did was I took a piece of paper and traced this shape that's gonna go in here, then cut out the gussets and stuck them on. So, do you see an oval platter up there? I'm sure there is one. And so for the mugs, she just made a taller and more narrow form, again with no bottom. You could bring down a couple of those so they can see all the different.
How could you do an oval if you had a bottom in it?
You don't. That's what I just did. Was she would have shaped the oval first. You would have done what I did when this was upside down. So this is the platter, the oval platter. And notice that on this one, there's 4 feet. On this one, the bottom's flat. And again, and in this one, she just put her peaks, I guess, wherever she wanted them. And then the clay was soft enough. After the bottom is on, you can't do this, what I just did. She splayed it out and added these gussets.
And she did this.
And then all the curvilinear stuff. And I think she cut this rim, no? That's what
I don't think
I was
so.
having a talk with somebody about that. And then here's another. But if you look at her bottoms, see, every piece is the same at the bottom. And she's doing all that. Do we have her video in the library?
I just took it out.
Yes, we do, we have a Martha Grover.
Yeah, definitely watch it, because she's,
So she works here?
no, she did a workshop here for my students and for some of the board members. She stayed here for 5 days and did a really nice workshop for us. And she does workshops all over the country. And she sells her pots. In a
But
lot.
she left her.
She left all her bisqueware. She left all her demo pots,
Right.
and I bisqued them. So, I don't know if I'll ever glaze them, but they're fun to have around. Someday I'll need that space for something else, and God knows what I'll do. Okay, I'm sorry that it wasn't more well put together, but again, I'm just trying to
That was good.
convey the idea.